Hey everybody, thanks so much for checking out Better Student Ministry. My name's Mark Freeman and this is Jared Barry, and together we have over 30 years of youth ministry experience.
We hope this resource was a blessing to you and your team. Along with every training video, we've included a downloadable PDF filled with discussion questions for you to wrestle through and contextualize the topic we've discussed. If you guys are interested in doing a deeper dive, we also have a podcast that's available where Mark and I talk a lot more about the topics we've talked about today. You can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and Facebook by simply searching Better Student Ministry. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Better Student Ministry. We're so glad you guys are with us. And today we're going to talk about a really important topic, your faith in social media. We know that social media plays a huge role in everyone's lives today. That includes you as leaders, but also includes your students. And so today we want to share some thoughts with you about how you can lead your students well in the area of their faith and their social media presence. So Mark, get us started.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what your opinions are about social media, the evils of it, the benefits of it, the reality is it's a part of our lives in some way, shape, or another, and we have to be ready to interact with it. We have to be ready to respond to it. We have to be ready to engage in it. Sure. And if we are just passive about it, it's too big of a deal to be passive about. So there needs to be a plan. There needs to be intentional thinking about it. The first kind of area we want to talk about is as the leader, as a leader in the youth group, not necessarily the point leader, but any leader in the youth group. How do we leverage, how do we engage in, how do we use social media, and what is the influence of social media in the lives of our students? And so I think the first thing we want to really think through and consider is this idea that your students are there. They're online, any number of different locations. And you need to be present there in some way as well, because there is an opportunity for influence. Most of us only have a few touch points throughout a given week or certainly throughout a given month. And the opportunity for us to leverage our influence on social media, in social media, both from the opportunity for the students to see what's going on in our lives, but sometimes even more importantly, for us to be able to see what's going on in their lives. Yeah. If our desire is to be able to pace with students, to interact with students, to share life with students, and we only get a snippet of what their life looks like at church for an hour on a Wednesday night or whenever your group gathers, we're missing a significant part of their life that we've got a window or a door into, and not in some kind of creepy way, but they've put it out there, whether they realize fully what that means or not. And so you want to be knowing what's going on in the lives of your students, almost like a protective mom or dad would in some ways, in some healthy ways. Be aware of what they're going through. Yeah. Students are so honest online sometimes, even in the veil of their communication. And so it'll take some interpretation, it'll take some knowing of what I've had face-to-face with this student and connecting it to what is their online life looks like. And so it'll give you triggers for, so-and-so is having a bad day, I'm gonna reach out. Or there's something really weird that I need to follow up with them based on a comment they've made or an interaction that they've made. And so I guess my first point would be this idea of take advantage of the window into their life through social media. Now, I understand sometimes, it's not always authentic what you see online, but sometimes that gives you a really good insight into what's going on in their life as well. You're like, this does not sound like them. I've had a face-to-face conversation with them, and this doesn't seem right. Now, you were in youth ministry such a long time ago, social media wasn't really even around at that time, if I recall correctly.
True, yeah. The internet wasn't even there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Did you have any conversations with your staff as it relates to being able to make touch points and connecting with their students online, or what was your experience there?
Yeah, I will say, you joke, but it's been a little bit of time since I've been out of full-time youth ministry, probably 6 or 7 years. So it is a different world than it was, 7 years ago. But for us, we would encourage our staff to stay engaged, like you said, and allow them to connect with their students in that way. But then we also had different safety protocols for them as far as how to protect themselves. And I think that's a big part of the conversation when it comes to being a leader who's engaged in social media is, what does it look like for you in your faith and for you doing ministry to teenagers? What does your social media look like, right? Like what you post matters, what you say. There's our lives, our physical lives, like what people do when they interact with us in person, the conversations that we have. But now we live in a world where there's also this online life that is a presentation of who we are.
Yeah.
And like you said, like it or not, that is the reality. So like I'd love to hear from you, and I think we got to wrestle with this more now than ever before, is what does it mean for leaders to present that online life, that social media life, where they want to be authentic, but they also understand that there's a responsibility for them because they're in leadership.
Sure. I think the Bible makes it pretty clear to us that with leadership comes greater levels of accountability, greater levels of scrutiny.
Yeah.
Because we choose to be a leader, we open our lives up to that sort of involvement from the parents of the students we're with, certainly from the students, from other leaders within the group, certainly to the point leader that's in our group. And so you may not like it, you might not love it, you may think it's some kind of bizarre, unnecessary level of censorship, but the reality is there is a different level of accountability for leaders.
Yep.
You've got to be okay with that. I made that really clear with my staff when they first are deciding to be a part of it. Then there are certain things that we would say, hey, this is, as a leader, you're going to choose to be okay with this level of scrutiny. You're going to be okay with me speaking pretty honestly into your life as it relates to some of these things. It doesn't necessarily prohibit healthy adult interactions not on social media, but be aware of the filters by which students are engaging in yours. I've said this in a number of different videos that we've done. Sometimes your highest level is the starting line for students. So what you do and you're like, that's the boundary of how far I would go, becomes like kind of the starting line for them. And so whatever you post or present out there is not only is it stamp it as okay in the life of a student, but it's like the starting line for where they go from there.
And they don't always have the maturity level or the context to process what you're doing or posting in this way that you would. Yeah. Because you're talking about young kids who haven't matured, they haven't developed. And so I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to the pursuit of Christianity is the laying down of my rights in some ways, right? Like I have the right to do this, but I choose not to because I'm not here to serve myself. I'm here to serve the people around me. Yeah. And when it comes to leading teenagers, you willingly sacrifice your rights to say everything you want to say, to do everything that you probably could do and want to do, because you're now leading people who come from a variety of perspectives, a variety of thoughts, and a variety of challenges. And now you're saying, I've got to be conscious of that and careful with that. Yeah.
And we have to remember that statements that we make online don't go through a filter of context a lot of times. Yeah. And so explanation of things is a necessity. And so sometimes it's just not worth the risk. And you may think to yourself, well, that's not me being authentic. That's not me being honest. But I think if we are aware of that, it'll help us phrase things differently. It'll make us make sure we follow up with some of those statements and claims that we make. And I think all of that is just really healthy. Yeah. So as we've talked about, what a leader needs to think about, let's transition as leaders now helping students think through how they engage in social media. What would be some suggestions that you would give?
There's two thoughts that I would challenge youth with, that I'm working with when it comes to their social media. And the first thought is this, that social media is more important than they think. Yeah. And that kind of sounds like a weird thing, right? Because we're in a social media crazed, obsessed generation. But here's what I mean by that. Oftentimes students don't realize the impact that their social media presence or their social media life has on the people around them. So if you've got students who are trying to live out their Christian faith, and in person they're one way, in person they're trying to be kind and nice, and they're trying to share their faith, and they're trying to maybe point people to Jesus in whatever small ways they can. But then on social media, they've totally disassociated their social media presence or life from their Christianity. And so on social media, they're ranting or raving, or maybe everything on their social media is selfies of them, or it's self-absorbed pictures or posts or whatever. Like helping them understand, like, hey, what you post has an impact on the people around you. There's a missional element to how you present and how you live your life on social media. It matters more than you realize.
Yeah, I think I'm always surprised when I've had a conversation with a student about something I saw on their social media, and they seem surprised or shocked that I saw it. That it was like they were surprised that it was public, even though they put it out there. Right. I think sometimes that's like a false like humility, like, oh, and I think sometimes it's a fishing for, I need a follow up on this. I need to know why you encountered it the way that you did, or why your concern is with something the way that it is.
Or sometimes I just forget, hey, you're posting this for the whole world. Yeah. And guess what? Once you post it, it's out there. You
Yeah.
know? So what you post really matters.
Yeah. So not only is social media more important than you think it is, but also it's important for students to understand social media is not as important as you think it is.
Yeah, that's our second thought,
Yeah.
right? It's less important than you realize or than they think it is. And here's what I would say about this is, because we live in a social media obsessed culture and generation today, we have to help them understand the idea of boundaries and the idea of what is this social media doing to you and to your life. And there's all kinds of documentaries and studies about the negative effects of social media and what it does to our teenagers, to our young people. So we have to help them realize what you post on there matters, right? It's more important, but it's also less important in the fact that you don't need this to have. This is not your life.
Yeah.
You have a life outside of this. And oftentimes this social media thing is unhealthy and it's negative, it has negative consequences for you. And so one of the things that I would challenge people to do is I would say, hey, look at all your social media posts over the last, 6 months or maybe even longer than that, depending on what does it say about you?
It's good.
What does it say about you? And oftentimes what you find is, if I'm looking at this over, what I see is you're completely self-absorbed. You don't care about the world around you. You don't care about what's happening to other people. You care about your life, or you care about one particular issue, and this is the only thing that matters, or whatever, right? What does it say about you? But then I would also ask them, as you spend time on social media, how does it make you feel?
Yeah,
When you're done with that session of social media, do you feel good about yourself? Do you feel bad about yourself? Why? Do you find yourself wanting to go back? Do you find yourself jealous of the other people? Do you find yourself constantly obsessed with who's looking at my post? How many likes do I have? Whatever. Help them begin to realize and connect that this social media thing is often really unhealthy for them in their lives. And probably what they need is to figure out some sort of boundaries to go, I need to take a break from this.
Yeah. I think if we can get ourselves in the mindset that social media is a tool that I can use and I can leverage, then it can be healthy for you. But if you allow the social media to drive and direct you, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble, and it's going to be dangerous both for the leader and for the student as well. We want to give you guys now an opportunity to speak within your own groups as well. We're going to have some questions for you to talk about. Thanks so much for spending the last couple of minutes with us. Take an opportunity to listen to these questions and wrestle with them, talk through them, be intentional about what your online presence looks like and your faith linked in with social media. Thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Question number 1. If a parent were to look over your social media, what would it communicate about you as a leader? Question number 2. What are some of the best practices when it comes to leader and student interactions on social media? Question number 3. How can we help students understand that social media is both more important and less important than they think it is? Question number 4. Based on their current social media presence, which students in your youth ministry need to follow up with an adult leader? Thanks for checking out Better Student Ministry. If you enjoyed this content, feel free to share it with a friend. You can always find our videos by searching Better Student Ministry on either Facebook or YouTube. And if you want to dive deeper into the content we discussed today, we've got a podcast available for you on both SoundCloud and iTunes, or on our YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, share it with people who are around you. We hope it's been a blessing to you. If you've got questions or content you'd love us to discuss, feel free to email us at betterstudentministry@gmail.com.